Well, that's a great question. Probably not prepared to talk about that right now. I think if he just plays better, it's no different than who's going to be our middle linebacker right now. You have Tough Borland, Baron Browning, uh, Hilliard, Justin Hilliard, and who's going to play that? The guy that has the best camp. We have 25 practices. Really about after 2 weeks, we're going to have to make a decision and get him ready to go play in that game. But the best thing that what's made Ohio State great, in my opinion, are really successful the last few years is the intense competition within positions. If someone's not performing, there's a pretty good guy right behind you, and that's what I hope to have happen in training camp.
You think Tough would be ready for the opening camp? I mean, what's your?
Oh, no, not the opening camp.
Yeah.
No.
When do you think? What's your timeline?
I mean, if I needed him to be, probably would be. That's how his name is pretty indicative of what kind of kid he is. But I anticipate he'll be ready early in the season. I don't want to put too much pressure. I just know him. He's like JT. He's just one of those guys that heals fast and he's a tough guy.
How long will he need to practice before he's ready?
He's a very smart player. He's a mental rep guy. So as long as he won't need much reps.
Which was it a partially torn?
Competition, you still have to find a way to get him on the field to think of other packages and uses for him. What's his vision?
Well, we always, and I do it multiple times during the year, I list the top 20 players on offense in order. And then I hold it over the coaches' heads to make sure those guys are playing. If Tate doesn't play well, no, we don't. But if he's one of our best players, you have to find a way to get him in the game. And we have all kinds of ideas. And a guy like that's easy to get in a game.
Can you talk so much talk to us about Dwayne and Joe in the spring? What's Tate doing? What did he give you in this?
The greatest compliment and the common denominator of every great player I've ever coached is competitive spirit. And that's what made Tebow. That's what made Alex Smith. J.T. Barrett. I'm just giving you an example as a quarterback. I see that in Tate Martell. And so does our strength coach. I see a guy that refuses to lose, and that's very appealing to a coaching staff.
Urban, you said you had ideas for Tate, but does that change at all when, if he's not your starter, he's a number two, and the guy behind him was a true freshman who's coming off a knee injury? Can you not maybe use him as much as you had hoped to before you lost the ball?
Well, I've had thoughts about punt returner. I've had all, but you're right. How do you jeopardize your whole program if you do that? So that exact conversation's been had 50, 60 times. How much can you really use him if he's the number two? And the number three is a true freshman coming off a bad knee injury. Who? Oh, he's doing great. He's up to 210 pounds. Our receivers love him. We're talking about Matt Baldwin. And what he did at Texas, at Lake Travis, was phenomenal. Stuck around, played the 1 year, and I'm very excited about him. Dwayne is, it showed in front of millions of people in our rivalry game. He has a little different way of doing it, but he's earning the respect of our players and our staff. Every day, his body's changed. When you guys, I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he's worked really hard.
Urban, in the spring, you guys were toying around with Isaiah, seemed at both left and right tackle. You guys made a decision and have an idea of how he's going to be.
We have an idea, but I don't want to announce anything yet. I think during training camp, at some point, I'll let you guys know. But I don't want to get into Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson's business, and I'm letting them kind of organize that.
Is there a chance
could be
we see
a-
Michael Jordan consider this year? What's your there have been rumblings about that?
Yeah, I think you always are snapping guys because you need to. That's a bad situation. You run out of a center, and everybody talks about the loss of JT. We had Pat Elflein go start as a rookie. We had a first rounder, one of the best players ever to play at Ohio State, Billy Price. We've had very good centers. Brady Taylor had a great spring, but you need more than one. And who are they? You have Josh Myers, you have potentially Michael Jordan, and we're just constantly trying to find out who can snap and step.
Coach, are you hearing a buzz about anybody from Vic, a kid that could step up that we don't know, break out? What about tight ends?
tight ends that had a very good summer. Luke Farrell run with the first team immediately, and then Rashad Berry's had a great summer, and so has Jake Hausman. And then, unless something happens, Jeremy will play. So those are the 4 tight ends. Yeah.
Urban, going back to what Tim asked about Michael possibly playing center, you have 4 guys with starting experience on the offensive line, and then it seems you have Thayer, who it seems like he's going to be a starter. And I know you look for the best 5. Is it possible maybe you don't play the best 5 if one of those best 5 can't play center?
I would be disappointed if that happens, but you also have Brendan Bowen coming back. You have Demetrius Knox. You have a kid named Wyatt Davis who had an excellent summer, and Josh Myers. So it's the most quality depth we've had. Josh Allaby has to play. I mean, he's done so well. Now it's time to go play. So I can't tell you the starting 5.
You had a career-shaping experience when you were at Bowling Green, but now for MAC schools, when they have openings, they've seen their market kind of shrink because you can make so much money as an assistant coach now. So for a guy that's weighing the chance to be a head coach at that level versus making more money as an assistant, what advice would you give to a guy that's in that position?
Make sure you go to a place you can win. At the end of the day, that's really what matters. If you get stuck in a place that historically you can't win, you don't get support from the athletic director and administration. The final decision I made to go to Bowling Green is when I went through the media guide, and they had a winning record against, I'm not sure if it's still true today, but every conference opponent, they had a winning record against them. And I thought, they've done it before, we can do it again. If they've never done it before, and it's, my advice is, I can't tell them what to do, but don't take it.
Urban, I know you answered some questions about this up at the podium, but I think we just need to make sure there's no ambiguity about the Zach Smith stuff. Can I ask you a couple clarifying things? The 2015 reported incident, are you saying that you don't know anything about that, or do you believe that didn't happen?
I can't say it didn't happen because I wasn't there. I was never told about anything. Anything came to light. I never had a conversation about it, so I know nothing about that.
So anything about that did not factor into your decision?
No. First I heard about that was last night.
So you don't know anything about 2015? That wasn't a factor in your decision with Zach?
No, and I asked some people back at the office to call and say what happened, and they came back and said they know nothing about it.
Okay. With what you knew about 2009, saying you knew about that, why were you comfortable hiring Zach in 2012 at Ohio State, knowing what you knew about 2009?
My comments about 2009, obviously a long time ago, but whenever you get an accusation, you contact your superior, you find out what happened, and let the people do their jobs. And then you let, the legal course run its course and find out and ask them because they're experts. It came back to me. We found out what happened according to both parties, according to everything. We met with them. There were no charges. Everything was dropped. There was a very young couple, and I saw a very talented coach, and we moved forward.
And so, with what you knew at the time and what you know now, do you believe that possibly it was a mistake to have Zach Smith around your players for 6 years, given where we are today?
If I did, I would have made a change, or I would not have done it. So obviously, I made a decision that we were going to move forward with him on our staff.
And I understand. I know you don't want to talk about this all day.
We're
Just
done.
in the end, do you have any regrets about how you handled any of this, or how Ohio State handled any of this along the way? Because it's about Zach, but it's also about you and the university as well.
Oh, sure. No, and more importantly, our superiors we handled it the right way. In our opinion, once again, there's going to be, I've been down that road. Well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's a very personal matter. Domestic issues are a lot of he said, she said, and I care about people. We care about people as they move forward. So after now digesting it, praying on it, going through the typical conversations with the few people I have, it's whatever time of day it is, I think we handled it right.
You said this morning it's going to be within a week or two. Just from a general perspective, what have you learned about Brian Hartline? Or if he's not a guy you coach?
He's got potential to be an excellent coach. He's, you know, you worry about NFL guys. I hate to lump them like that because you're labeling people. But NFL guys, hey, go make coffee. Hey, draw these scout team cards. Hey, make sure this guy's lined up. Make sure this guy's going to class. Check his, you know, and they roll their eyes at you. You know, Brian Hartline is, I want to say 9 years in the National Football League. Wonderful guy and works his tail off. So Brian Hartline is a very important part of our staff.
What's the relationship with player and coaches have a very close relationship?
Very strong, very, very strong. And he's one of those guys, and, you know, I think it's probably easier to ask them, but I just know what I know and what I see. And that the NFL's instant credibility, especially for a guy that's a made player. You know, Brian Hartline, I've studied Brian Hartline. You know, Mike, his brother, was on my staff too. I just really, a lot of respect for that family. And he was a guy that, the reason he survived 9 years, he outworked everybody. It wasn't because he was a 4'2", 40 guy or you know, some specimen athletically. So a lot of respect for him. And so do our players.
There's a question, though, he's never been an active recruiter, like on the road, things like that. How much do you weigh that to what you're looking at?
I weigh everything, and that's job number one is not to coach your receivers. It would be to bring in quality student athletes. That's the number one job of a position coach in college at Ohio State.
Are you able to do that in this time frame? It's much more constricting. Are you able to have the scope that you would like this time of year?
I'm not concerned about it. This is a very unusual situation. I've not been in this situation before, but I am not one bit anxious about moving forward. Not one bit. I'm very confident about our staff and really what makes the situation unique. This is the most mature group of receivers I've ever had in 30 years of being around the game. You know, and when I say that, I mean academically, socially, and then in this weight room. Usually, you know, once again, you hate to label guys, but receivers used to watch them. These guys are the leaders of the team right now. So, well, the backup has taken 0 snaps. And the backup has taken 0 snaps. So it's imperative that those guys are felt throughout practice in the weight room. And we checked off the box. Spring practice, check the box off. Off-season summer program, check the box off. They've done their job. Now it's training camp.
What is your biggest going into like August 3rd, this weekend? What will be on your mind most? I mean, obviously you got to name it, receivers coach. What will be on your mind most about your football team that you have to find out between now and September 1?
Oh, there's a couple position battles that we have to find, but I'm so into this game is so about who's healthy and getting your team to that first game prepared yet healthy, and I think that's a fine line. And I've never been more, along with our strength coach, more not concerned, but the efficiency is the word, and all the analytics that we use to find out, you know, are we putting a player in harm's way? Is the player properly stretched? You know, Mike Weber had a devastating injury. He wasn't right for 3 months after that. And those are things, that's the worst nightmare a coach can have. These guys work so hard, and we just want to make sure that they're healthy and we do the right by them. You just said I was old. At the beginning, I didn't quite get the question.
How much more valuable does that become having Shelley weigh in on things within your coaching career?
Oh, she's always weighed in, you know, and that's my best friend and soulmate, and she's been right there with everything, especially when you start dealing with, you know, not necessarily who's going to carry the ball on third down. She has opinions too, but we don't chat about that. We chat about people. She's got a great spirit and a great love of people, and her heart's always in the right place. She's phenomenal, and so absolutely I rely on her. It's wide open. Pryor, Wint just got moved to gold. He's had an excellent summer. Brendan White, and then you have two freshmen, Marcus Hooker and Josh Proctor, and then you got Amir Reap. We moved to safety as well. There will. He'll be suspended for the first game. I'm sorry? Ready to roll. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be smart, but he's had an incredible summer, and he looks as good as I've ever seen him.
Urban,
Well, I count on him to be in that mix.
Urban, you've talked about, I think, this kind of thing a lot in your time here, but Scott Frost is going back to Nebraska as an alum to a program that needs to get it right, a traditional power that wants to get it right. You're not an alum, really, but we know your connections to Ohio State. When you're going back to a traditional power that needs someone to get it right for them, just do you feel an even greater responsibility? I know every coach wants to do the best job at every school, but when you have that connection like you did at OSU, like Scott does at Nebraska, do you feel an even greater responsibility?
Well, first of all, I am a grad school. But yeah, it's a little bit of an overwhelming feeling that when you love your state, you love your university, and I consider Ohio State our university, and so it's a lot of responsibility. I can't speak for Scott, a very impressive guy, and I remember recruiting him and coaching against him, but there's a little extra, to take a job. I took a job at Utah because we wanted to move out west, and I saw great promise, not because of my love for Utah. Now I ended up loving Utah, and so there's a lot of, I shouldn't say pressure, but I don't want to speak for him, but you really feel it when it's your home school and home state.
Is it more positives or negatives in the end? I'm sure
I think more positive because your love it's so sincere. When you're recruiting for a school and a place you love, it's very sincere.
Urban, you guys have brought in top 5 classes basically every year since you've been here. How long does it usually take for you once they're in the program to kind of see or feel whether that's going to be
pretty quick?
Well,
J.K. Dobbins, Raekwon's the ultimate. He walked on campus, was a grown man, and played. J.K. Dobbins might be our close second. Walked in and played. And it's so much of a maturity. So we have an idea, even through off season, I have my opinions of who's going to step in and play. I'm not going to share because it's not fair to do that yet because, now we're going to see how they operate with shoulder pads, helmets, etc. But you can see the maturity.
In the 17 class, obviously, JK is part of it, and it's going to be a major, it could be even make or break in terms of what your season's like. What is your general consensus? I know it's hard to lump everybody in together, but is the 17 class of Ohio State hit so far?
17, I don't want to lump them all together, but 16, 17, 18 have been a nice run. And I'm just talking about the overall, not just on the field, but everything. Guys are doing well and they're just good people. And I see a team that in a locker room you have to kind of tell them to leave, and Coach Mick says the same thing. They just love being around each other. There's times where I've been on teams or been around teams that they come to practice and they leave their car running because they want to leave so fast. This is one of the group that they enjoy being around each other.
I'm basically trying to get at here is 14 season when you guys went all the way, 13 class and a major thumbprint.
Oh yeah.
Are there parallels that you can?
I haven't thought about it, but
sophomores on this team that are going to be in make or break positions. I didn't know if there are any parallels that you can make between.
I hope. I haven't really thought about it, but I hope so.
Vision now for the kickoffs, and it's going to change the rule. That's going to be a part of the program.
Probably had about a dozen conversations, and the thing to keep in mind, and that's what I always bring up I always start the meeting, and I'll say, we're going to do this, and if we have an advantage, we're going to do it. So if we feel like we can return a kick against someone, we'll do it. If not, we'll do this. Kickoff coverage, same thing. If we can find a way to have an advantage, then we'll do it. I'm anxious to see what teams will do against us. That's what Coach Yano and I have been talking about. Do they just condense with us, or do they keep spread out and see if it's a kick that's not on target and return it? If it's on target, then just fair catch it.
It seems like that rule change, it's always been a pretty significant part of both ways of talking. Is that a significant impact?
I think to be determined. We'll see. I'm not disagreeing with the rule. I think it's very interesting, and I think this point next year we'll have that conversation about how it went.
How do you think it will change your return?
Same thing. If we have an advantage, we'll do it. Advantages are a missed kick, Maybe we feel like we're better than them in a return game. Those are two.
Have any concerns about Zach Smith's personal conduct prior to this past week?
I'm going to talk about our team from this point forward.
Urban, you mentioned Brandon Bowen earlier. How far along is he in his recovery? I know he had the broken leg, but as you mentioned, he's playing really well before that. Is he going to be ready for the first game, for camp? Or?
Yeah, he's been cleared for camp. I think it's just we have to be smart. It was a tough injury, and all feedback I'm getting is he's been cleared, ready to go.
And back to Dwayne Haskins, I know when you were speaking at the Hall of Fame luncheon in Canton, you mentioned, I believe the quote was, having Dwayne Haskins as our quarterback will change the way we attack defenses. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think your quarterback is such a key part. It's his skill set's uniquely, or not uniquely, but very different than JT Barrett. And, his release, his size, his accuracy are his strengths. So I just see us being a lot of times JT, we're still going to be a spread offense, which means you have dual opportunities, either give it or hand it, either give it or pull it. The RPO world where you give it or you throw it, I just think that's probably going to even be more involved than it was with JT.
After Tate Martell, the last several quarterbacks y'all, Matthew Baldwin and some of the guys that are coming later, that y'all have been interested in or have committed or considered pro-style quarterbacks. What does that mean to you? And number two, are you looking at it from that standpoint? And is that a little bit of a sea change for you?
No, I think we take the best available player. We won 3 national titles. 2 have been with drop-back quarterback, pro-style quarterbacks, Chris Leak and Cardell Jones. We've also had great success, also an undefeated season with a pro-style quarterback in Alex Smith. Then you had Tebow, Braxton Miller, and I put JT a little bit on both. So we fit whatever we have. We go after the best player that has the intangibles of competitiveness and toughness and leadership, and we build it around what he can do.
Keep the play alive, that's your big.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Urban, you guys might, numbers-wise, be in a situation where you might have to take 2 quarterbacks in a single class, depending on how things work out. What's your take on ever taking 2 in the same year?
We've done it.
Is it to convince 2
I think we took a Cam Newton and Johnny Brantley one time, and that's not ideal. You don't want to do that. If you have to, we'll see what happens down the road, but that's not ideal. Oh yeah, phenomenal. But off the field, he's always been great. On the field, he had some struggles early as an offensive tackle, and then his development has been great. But he's always been a very good member of our team. His leadership has really improved, but it's also his confidence level. He's a very confident player right now. It was just strength and development. The offensive line he's long-bodied up players take a long time to develop. The short-body guys are much easier to develop, but you're talking about 6'7", very long guy that was weak, and fundamentally it's a little bit of a Bambi when he got him. So just confidence and development is his physical skill set development.
Urban,
I'm sorry?
What is the key to developing a young quarterback?
It's not that simple to say what is the one thing. It's a variety of things, and we have we try not to. Once a quarterback loses confidence, you got to really struggle. It's gonna be a tough road, and I'm not talking about just for the next game. And so, very cautious about bringing him along and doing what he can do early, and so that's something that we look at very closely, among the other things. But just make sure he doesn't lose that confidence, because quarterback's a tough position, obviously.
Urban, in the past you've described the ability to run JT as a get-out-of-jail-free card because he was so good at it, in whatever way you did it. What is your comfort level with Dwayne and his ability to be something similar to that?
Not the same as JT, but enough to do what we got to do.
Is it from the outside, it seems like it would be almost a pretty drastic change. Obviously, JT was great at it, and what's Dwayne's comfort level doing it?
Not like JT, but he understands that's a part of who we are. We'll always be a little bit of who we are. The get out of jail free card might be a quick pass or a bubble screen or those type of things. So that's all to be determined.
Last year, Penn State, you guys played this top 10, top 5 showdown. Great game, good game, and both teams lost the following week. Is that a With the strength of the division, everybody talks about those 4 teams, but how did you use that lesson? Any aha moment?
It's also our conference. It's top to bottom. I've had a great conversation with some of our colleagues, and I don't know if the Big Ten's, you guys have been around probably longer than I have in the conference. I can't imagine it's ever been like this. And maybe you can say, well, sure, it is back in 1970, top to bottom. That's an excellent team we played that day in Iowa. Now, maybe they weren't excellent the other days, but they were a very good team. They should have beat Penn State as well. So it's a lesson learned, but it's also respect to our opponent. You got to prepare and play every week. And we've been fairly good about that. That was a bad speed bump.
And Scott Frost had another dimension.
Sure.
So you've been monitoring his film.
Not many people have done what he did. I admire what he does. I admire the way he goes about his business. And the little I know of him, Nebraska's got an excellent coach.
Urban, I know
Some
it's,
of yourself in
I don't know.
The depth of the Big Ten. I know you touched on it a little bit this morning. The problem that the champion of the city has not made the playoffs in 20 years. I know you said that's a problem, but do you have a solution to the problem? Does it involve a 18 playoff? Does it involve having more respect for the Big Ten? What does it take? Because there were a lot of really good teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and they're 7-1 in bowl games, and you kind of feed. That happened in the SEC too. You start playing, great teams play each other, and someone's going to lose. And is the goal of the Big Ten to get a team in the college football playoff, or to satisfy the television? They want to see the great teams play great teams every week. What's the goal? Those are conversations that are being held at the highest level of our conference. Conversations that need to be held. And do we cut back to 8 games, or because the television's more important, let's keep it at 9? Those are all things that I'm not really a part of, but people need to be having those conversations.
2 years ago, you made the playoffs because you had a really tough schedule, despite not winning the conference. But last year you had a pretty tough conference last year too. In the conference, but had 2 losses and some teams with not as good a schedule. Do you kind of get a little bit married when you've gone through such an epic schedule with teams like TCU and Texas and in the future? Do you kind of look at that and say maybe you shouldn't schedule such tough opponents in another conference, or are you worried about it?
I don't get involved. I tried to do that years ago, and I just let Gene. And we've had our general conversation about 3 or 4 years ago. We visit once in a while, but the conversation always play a marquee team, and we're not. We go home and home with them, and I agree with them. But I think that's a conversation to be had. We haven't had one recently, but I'm sure we will.
Urban, I know sometimes the big picture reflection is hard when you're in the middle of it, but I figured this is as good a time as any. You had 6 years at Florida, you have 6 years now at Ohio State. What do you think of the first 6 years at Ohio State?
Oh, it was awesome. It was a great. I do look back once in a while, and I see our former players come back from a situation that was not any blame placed anywhere, but a program that was struggling a bit for a variety of reasons. And to see a team that came and won 12 games, and then been in the hunt every year for the championship, it's been awesome. I want to make sure we continue to make the program one of the tops in the country.
Is there any challenge now? So you're at a point now as a head coach that you haven't been at before, going into a 7th year at a school. Is that only a positive because you have all this experience at this school now, or is there anything on the other side of, guarding against, making sure, I don't know, not getting stale, but just that, you've been around for a while now? What's the balance of that?
Yeah, Lou Holtz and I have had many conversations I'll never forget, and there's so much truth that building is excitement and energy, and maintaining is fatigue. And I'm trying not to let us get into maintain mode. Florida, we built a monster. You won 2 national championships in 3 years. 3 out of 4 years, we won 13 games. And, the expectation level goes off the roof, and I was kind of disappointed some of the way I handled that, where it became maintaining as opposed to continually building. We're building a brand new part to our facility. We're constantly finding new ways to recruit, where I'm constantly pushing our staff as hard as they can be pushed. and I'm not letting the maintain word get anywhere near our program. I'll watch that closely.
When you say you're finding new ways to recruit, can you give me a little example?
Yeah, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we were behind in social media. Now it's hard to say we're not the best. I hired a whole new, brand new staff that I want to say there's 5 people that their sole job is to send out the graphic videos and all the social media. We're 5 years. I didn't know what that meant. And so we studied some of the other teams that were doing very well, and I'd like to I hear we're kind of number one in that field now. So that's going to change next year. And I'm constantly, one of the things I think I have a gift at is pushing. I constantly push people to give me feedback on how to be the best.
Urban, along those lines, you guys lost Aaron Hodges to Purdue. So
Yeah, it was great.
What kind of loss is that for you guys?
Tough one. He's excellent, and Purdue's a team to watch. Their coach is obviously a very good coach, but you feel Purdue now everywhere, and they've done a very nice job.
And I know you take pride in helping. You get an assistant, you help him get a head coaching job eventually. Is there anything to a guy comes and works under Mark and then gets to go run his own personnel department?
Yeah, I think Mark's, I've heard this, in my opinion, he's the best at what he does, and you're starting to see his people start to branch out. We have one at Texas, we have one at Rutgers, we have one at Purdue now. When they want, Mark's kind of it's hard to believe because I hired him as a student. He's the godfather, one of the older guys now. Probably not older, but more experienced guys.
How have you seen him evolve?
Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's elite. He's constantly adapting to what's around him and what needs to be done. They did for a while, but I think people know that, I would imagine he's very, him and his wife are great and they're happy. They come after everybody. They come after Stamper, too. I do. There's some hard parts which I had to deal with recently. There's the media component, which I'm not a big fan of. But I love players and I love teams. And especially, I'm starting to see a lot of the older guys come back. And, that's one of the great thrills I have to see our former players come back. And the stories get better and better and greater and greater.
Urban.
No, I feel great. The early sign-in date was a very tough time. That was one of those times, a 3-week, I hope we do again. You play in a championship game, you're down to 2 weeks now. And we were 4 states in one day. And then in the same time you're landing and you're game planning, you're constantly on the phone, emailing the coordinators, getting ready for practice. You come in, you practice, you don't see your family, you're back out. That was awful. That was awful. But January was much better. January, you got it all back in January because that usually takes place in January. So it's just got to be careful. I worry about our coaches. I worry about, why would a guy stay in college if these new recruiting rules that a lot of these people are making, that we're spending time in June at satellite camps and having official visits. When do you go see your kid play baseball? Our families should be able to do that. When do you get to go to dinner with your wife and your family and get to be a father? When do you get to spend time with your players? And I'm a little upset about what's happened in the recruiting calendar. So that all plays a part in the longevity of careers.
Now that you're,
Well, I try to give them time off, and when it's time, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. And I'm very leery of, we don't do frivolous things where we're trying to just, do stuff. I want them at home. It's very important for our coaches to get home, get around their children, to get around their wife, and that's very important.
going into a year now on this new recruiting calendar, having gone through the toughness of preparing for a bowl game and all the stuff that was happening in December. And then January and then even now having the official visits in the summer with some of the juniors going into the senior year, having a whole year of that calendar now under your belt. You were asked on signing day what you felt of this new recruit. Now that it's all there, what is your kind of takeaway or viewpoint of the way the whole thing works?
I don't think it's good. I don't, we did very good, so I might sound hypocritical in saying our coaching staff killed it. They killed it. But I also saw a fatigue factor in a coaching staff and families that was beyond. But they also regrouped a little bit in January. January wasn't near as hard. We weren't having 15 kids on official visits because it was done. So we made it up in January, but that 3-week period, especially the bowl game, was moved up to the 29th. So you shut work right through Christmas now. It was
You guys,
tough.
yeah, you guys embraced it. I mean, you could have gone here. You weren't ready for this change. Once the change is made, what is your attitude?
Well, there's two approaches you can have. You can complain about it, or go do it the best you can. And I have a staff that did it the best they could. They won the bowl game, had a top 5 recruiting class, and still maintained a sense of health amongst our staff.
Are you guys as far ahead as you've ever been on 2 classes down the road?
Probably.
And why is that? Is that
I think our players are our best salespeople right now, and they love what's going on. It's a good time to be an Ohio State Buckeye. Off the field, on the field. Off the field, we're having job opportunity after job opportunity for our guys. The Real Life Wednesday has exploded, and it's now not in theory. It's testimony. It's real. It's happening, and our guys are getting rewarded for that. And then you look at the NFL draft. I mean, are you kidding me? If you come and you start at Ohio State, you're probably getting drafted.
The new redshirt rule where guys can play up to 4 games and still be eligible to redshirt. What are your thoughts about that, Coach, and how do you plan on using that to your advantage?
It's a benefit to the student athlete, and it's a benefit to us. So I think it's a great, one of the great. I'm not a big fan of new rules, but this is one that's bettered the student athlete.
They got one right, huh?
I think so.
Urban, the last 2 centers that you guys have had,
I'm sorry.
It seems more and more that players are sitting out bowl games that aren't to not jeopardize NFL careers. Do you have an idea of like red shirts play bowl games without it counting as official games? Kind of what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a good idea?
It's the first I heard of it. I think it's a very good idea. I think that offsets what might be coming down the road, where players will sit out for bowl games, and now you still got to play that game. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Do you
Jerry.
Go get him, Jerry.
do you have
Coach receivers.
He's got even his SID.
I'll pay you big money if someone got that on video.
do you have a couple of go-to guys that as hosts, players?
Yeah.
that you are-
Well, I'm not going to share that with you, but we have, and we try to reward them, and they know who we are, and you got to be careful not to burn those guys out. But we have more than we ever have, though.
Coach yesterday said that they sort of ran into that the June and April officials where they've got a couple of guys they like to lean on, but
It's every weekend. You can't do that. Yeah, I think those are all things that are showing up with this new calendar.
Hey, Urban said last week that he kind of took a page from you that Real Life Wednesdays tried to do that in basketball. Did he come pick your brain about it, or just try to?
Chris Holtman? Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we've had conversation, and, there's been some conversation about how to make that athletic department wide, so there's some really good conversation going on right now.
What's your relationship like with him? How does it help
Good.
the football program?
Yeah, I was just with him at the Jesse Owens event the other day, and I listen and watch. It's hard. I've been close with Thad, with Billy Donovan, with Dan Dockich all the way back, Rick Majerus. There's a name for you. And then Chris, and it's hard because our schedules are so nuts, but a very impressive guy, and I love what he's doing. I love what I read about what's going on with the program.
Was your first season better or Chris Holtman's first season?
Chris's was. I don't know. I don't.
Urban, when you have 2 quarterbacks with 2 different skill sets and you're trying to evaluate them in practice, how aware you have to be of how you call plays in practice and evaluate them?
That's hard. That's hard, but it's also hard for the defense to prepare for. So, and it's hard if they're not veteran players. But we're very experienced in both style quarterbacks. We did that with Cardell, obviously, and to jump right into that run when he took over for JT, that was, our staff did a hell of a job with that.
You mentioned you wanted to get back to that last year. It just seemed like it never happened. So how do you get back to that?
To what?
The 2014 run that you guys had. You mentioned last year that you wanted your coaching staff to watch tape of that and try to get back to some of that. How do you get back to that now, even when you're having over staff?
Well, it's not easy. That was one of the great runs in college football history, and very unique run. 59-0 to playing Alabama and playing Oregon. That was. But I go back and we'll watch it as a staff because I thought the balance in that Wisconsin game was phenomenal. I thought obviously going against a defense like Alabama, so you have a vision of what your offense should look like. I think Michigan State that year was so you have the template, but obviously there's a defense trying to not let you do that. But that's the vision of our offense.
Is the deep ball the big differential? I mean,
It's been a problem. Devin Smith was such a valuable member that he was the best I've ever been around, and we have to get back to hitting that deep ball.
But do you feel like you have a quarterback now, too? I'm not knocking JT, but do you feel like you have a quarterback now that can basically hit all four corners, so to speak, in the field? And what's your
I think so. That's something we'll know.
change your thinking?
Well, we're going to, there's a reason why we took so many shots when Devin Smith and Cardell Jones were there. They were very good at it. And at times we didn't, and I don't want to put it all on JT, but there was sometimes he wasn't as accurate. And there's other times we didn't have a guy separating and going to make that play. You think about the Wisconsin game, there was great opportunity, we didn't hit him. I think so, yeah. I think we have more than one. Yeah. Yeah, he's talented too. I love him. He's one of those guys. He comes from his mom's a principal, and you can tell, And so I gave her a little shout out. But I really can't wait to watch him go.
Irvin, earlier I couldn't hear everything you told Doug, so I apologize if you already answered this. If you found no information with the 2015 report on the reported incidents, why the decision to fire Zach?
I've covered. That's where the ship has sailed. We're moving on. So this is all about our players now. So that's been all.
I didn't know if you had answered. I couldn't hear.
Oh, I've answered all of them. Draymond made a decision to come back, and I am so impressed that a lot of times guys come back and maybe they see buyer's remorse. There never was. He's hit it full stride, and you see him walking around here. It's as good as he's ever looked. He's a grown man, and I can't wait. He's one of our best players. If not, after spring ball, what I saw in spring practice, it was hard to say he wasn't one of the top one or two players on our team.
Hey, Urban, the last 2 years,
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he would come out last year in third downs. I can assure you he's not coming out now.
the last 2 years, you guys centers, obviously, Elfline and Billy were leaders who returned and switched positions.
Jacoby Bourne, and before him, and Corey Lindsey before him.
And I know that you guys are still trying to find your center, but Brady Taylor is a guy that came in, was kind of a late take for you in his class, kind of was behind the scenes his entire career, and I think the general understanding is that he's a respected guy who did everything right,
Yep.
knows the playbook, and is a leader and somebody that people, is that something that you need out of your center, and is that a trait that maybe he has a leg up on in terms of just the time he's put in?
Yeah, I think Jacoby Bourne was a perfect example of that. He was not a first-round draft pick like a Pat Elflein or Billy Price or even Corey Lindsey. I thought should have been drafted much higher than he was. But Jacoby Bourne won a national title, and he knew everybody's responsibility. He was as tough as nails, and was really a great player for us.
I mean, the way that you guys recruit, it's just talent across the board, natural athleticism. I'm not knocking Brady. I don't know if he had as much of that as some of the five-star guys that you might pluck out of another state. What can you say just about his development? Is he a legitimate option for you guys, and can he play
Oh,
at this
sure.
level just from a physical
Yeah, there's no doubt. A year ago, he started to show. 3 years ago, no. Last year, he started showing signs, and then this spring, there's no doubt. And then I can't wait to see how, because he's put on a little bit more weight. He's got to get more powerful. That's the one thing that Billy and Pat were, so they could move people. And Brady, at a year or so ago, couldn't do that.
And you guys take guys just for numbers that you need sometimes late in the process. But is this when that plays out perfectly, when you take a guy late that might just be a body or a number that can kind of just grow and develop into potentially a starter? Is this like the best case scenario of a Columbus kid doing that?
It would be if it turns out, yeah. And I'm anticipating it will, because he's earned that right. And we're all pulling for him.
Just to be straight, Michael Jordan, did he get any snaps during practices in spring?
No.
But he has worked some.
Yeah, we started in the spring just when we started seeing there's a numbers. You need 4 people in your program that can snap at any time. And we didn't have that. So he's a guy that's very mature. You have to be careful not to slow his progress, because he's certainly not have all the answers at guard yet either. So, but he's a mature guy.
Did that happen when Matt Brown transferred?
Yeah. That way, whether Matt could do it. So those are all the questions that instigated that move.
The guys freshmen who enrolled in training, which guys have been
I think it's too early to say, and I'd hate to start labeling guys this early. Oh, man. Yeah, he's there's one. You can ask me about guys, and he's one that he just I'm very glad he's a Buckeye. I anticipate him to be in the rotation.
So if you had any a while ago. I mean, obviously we know about Marcus Hooker's situation and stuff. Injury-wise, anything else? Anybody in jeopardy?
No, I went through that list, and I anticipate that when you guys come watch one of the first few practices, it's going to be everybody going. Tough Moreland will be limited, and so will Booker just a touch, but everyone else is a go.
Urban, you said earlier how much you've been enjoying coaching at this point in your career. Do you think that's kind of influenced a little bit at home life? It seems like at home life, you're happier than ever. You got Troy. I love the picture of Leonard, and then Gigi just got engaged, I believe. How has your home life been, and then how does that kind of influence your job?
I think it's the mental health part, and I think the one thing Troy has never asked me about third down or about rotation at quarterback or issues that I have to deal with. But God knew what he was doing when he created grandchildren. It's really cool to be able to do that and to have them close by. So a big move is going to be when my son goes away to college. That's going to be a sucker punch. But it's all good, though. Thanks for asking that.
Urban, I know that this spring you brought in a speaker to talk to the teams during real life Wednesdays about mental health. How much more of the work has that become into you running a program in terms of making sure that guys are healthy?
That's moved from middle of the pack to one of the top 4 things in our program that I'm concerned about. And that's real. That's real, and it's something that we address. I have an athletic director, Gene Smith, that gets it. He played football, and the evolution of cell phones, where everybody you push send, and you just like people report stuff, like that affects people, and it's just still a people business, a people world. It's not number 16 or 78. These are people. So I watch that very closely. I have deep relationships with a lot of our players that I watch closely, and Ryan Stamper is he's one of our most valuable members of our staff. He helps me with that because he played the game and he understands the whole social media pressures coming from every angle. So it's something we watch very, very closely.
Urban, in a world where you guys have
from what happened there in your Florida run, some of that
Sure.
mental health issues, and program.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different with me as an adult, but not really. But it's more what's going on across this country. Nationally. Yeah. It did.
In a world where you guys have to discipline players for alcohol abuse and drug abuse and things, college stuff when kids get to college. It's an opioid crisis happening in this country right now. I don't know how often or how much you guys monitor just painkillers, because I feel like that's kind of always been maybe a major part of the game just to get kids ready. I mean, how are those used in your program?
Yeah, we've changed the whole policy a couple months ago when it was Gene was involved, everybody was involved, and I can't get into details. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but the entire policy has been changed, and we're no longer giving guys a large quantity of painkillers. You don't do that.
Okay. Urban, what kind of changes do you expect to your recruiting approach and game coaching change to the rest of the season?
The positive, we're pretty. We don't have many slots left, and we have to adapt. And those are all things that's happened so fast. I've not even met with my staff yet. I've been here, and we went back to work on Monday. And tomorrow, obviously, we'll have the rest of this week will be devoted to making sure we're in order.
Couple more questions, folks. Joe Burrow, the way that he developed, for LSU fans who are starved for, obviously a quarterback, just what can you tell them that should make them maybe excited to get a guy that a lot of guys,
Yeah, Joe Burrow was a made player. He came in and had a lot of work to do, and he did it. And he knows that. I know that. He's ready to go play college football. I mean, he's ready to go play, and he's earned that right. And that's why I think LSU fans should be very excited. He's got a lot of tools. Most important tool is competitive spirit and toughness. And then he can get the ball out fast. He's worked so hard on his release and arm strength. He's mobile enough to keep you honest. He's certainly not a JT, but he can run. He's a leader. He comes from a coach's family.
I asked you in there about the conversation you had with Joe and his family as he was going out, but what was that like? What was the plan going in? I know that had that discussion going into it, but like, where was he at the end of the decision when he was making that decision after the spring game, and what was it like just being in that room with his family when that decision was made?
Well, we and they, I think, handled it perfectly, and our conversations post-decision has been nothing but positive. Ryan Day, I thought, did a phenomenal job. I wanted to make sure that we had all statistics, all measurables on paper for him. I wanted to make sure he did get opportunity, because a lot of times, if you only run with the twos, you're not running with the ones. And it was not easy. And Ryan watched that as close as I've ever seen any coach. And at the end of spring, we made a decision. It was a very close decision. But it wasn't one of those. It was, we had it all in front of us.
Last question.
Yeah.
Tony.
Do you want? You're 16 and 17 and 18 class. Whenever you talk about them, you talk about how good kids they are. The impact of real life Wednesdays. It doesn't seem like that is a coincidence.
I agree.
That not only has it become this recruiting tool, but it's producing players more in line with what you have envisioned.
I think that's a true statement, that it's not by accident. There's a certain player that it's really appealing to them to come to a situation where you're involved in internships and job opportunities and life after football, and there's others it's not that real important. I just think the combination of National Football League championships and that, I'm very biased, but I think we got a pretty good package.
How does that desire show up on the field? Is it just I guess, the desire for that extra, or for that type of player who wants?
Oh.
How do you see that on the field?
That's a good question. I think, some coaches over the years have been worried about that. If you're too worried about being the next CEO of IBM, then are you really going to put your face in there in inside drill or whatever? So that's something we also watch. So there's a fine line, and I think that's something we all watch.
Great, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Wrap it up, folks.